The year was 1978, and the city was alive with excitement. Bright lights illuminated the streets, and everywhere there was music, chatter, and the hum of progress. The film industry was thriving, and actors and actresses were adored almost like royalty. Among them, one young actress was beginning to shine brighter than most. She wasn't just beautiful, she had a talent that seemed to reach into people's hearts. She could make anyone feel what her characters felt: joy, sadness, hope, fear. Her smile was infectious, and her laughter could light up the dullest room. Everyone who knew her said she had something special, a spark that set her apart. Her career had started just a few years before, but already she had appeared in films that critics praised and audiences loved. She was known for her dedication. She arrived on set early, rehearsed tirelessly, and was always willing to help other actors, even those who were just starting out. Directors admired her professionalism and fans admired her charm. Yet behind her radiant smile she carried her own secrets, struggles that very few people knew about. She was ambitious, but she also feared failure. She wanted to be perfect, not for the applause, but because she held herself to standards that often seemed impossible. On a rainy evening in late September, she finished shooting the last scene for a film that was expected to be a huge hit. The sky was dark and rain drizzled steadily, coating the streets with a glossy shine. She waved goodbye to her co-stars, climbed into her small car, and started driving home. The streets were unusually quiet, but she didn't mind. She enjoyed these moments alone where she could think and reflect. But that night something went wrong. Somewhere along the usual route she took every day, she vanished. Her car was never found. Her belongings were gone, and it was as if she had disappeared into thin air. At first, people thought she might have been delayed or taken a break somewhere. But hours passed, then a whole day, and still there was no sign of her. Her friends called, her family called, the studio called, but no one could find her. Panic began to spread. The police were called, and a massive search began. Officers combed the streets, questioned people who might have seen her, and even checked hospitals and shelters. They followed every lead, but none of them led anywhere. It was as if she had vanished without leaving a trace. Rumors began to swirl. Some said she had run away to start a new life. Others whispered that something terrible had happened, though nobody knew what. Fans refused to believe she could simply disappear. Posters were printed and placed all over the city. "Have you seen her?" Her family was devastated. Her mother could not stop crying, her father barely spoke, and her younger sibling wandered around the house in shock, unable to comprehend what had happened. They held on to hope that she would come back, that this was just a strange misunderstanding. Yet as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, hope began to feel fragile. The media frenzy made everything worse. Reporters camped outside her home asking questions she could not answer. People debated endlessly about what could have happened. Was it a kidnapping? An accident? Or had she run away to escape the pressures of fame? No one knew, and everyone had an opinion. The story became bigger than just the disappearance of one actress. It became a mystery that captured the imagination of an entire city. Even her co-workers were affected. Those who had worked closely with her spoke about her with tears in their eyes. They remembered her laughter, her warmth, her ability to make any film set feel alive. Directors said it was like losing a part of their own family. Fellow actors remembered the way she always stayed late to help others rehearse, even when she was exhausted. Everyone agreed on one thing: she had vanished too soon, and the world would never be the same without her presence. Meanwhile, the city continued on. Life went on as it always does. Street vendors sold their food, children played in alleys, cars honked in traffic jams, and the lights kept glowing. But for those who loved her, the city felt emptier, quieter, as if her absence had taken something out of the air itself. There were moments, however, when people thought they saw her. A taxi driver claimed to have seen a woman matching her description walking along the river late at night. A cafe owner swore she came in for coffee, smiling the same way, only to vanish moments later. These fleeting sightings gave hope, but they never lasted. When people ran after her or tried to speak, she was gone. Some dismissed these accounts as imagination, but others held on to them desperately. As months passed, her disappearance became a story of legends and whispers. Fans left flowers at her favorite places. Strangers offered prayers, and amateur detectives tried to trace her steps. Letters arrived at the studio, sometimes from people claiming to know her whereabouts. Some letters were written by pranksters, others by people who believed they were helping. Each letter was a mix of hope and despair, but none of them provided answers. Her friends tried to remember her as she was, laughing, full of life, and endlessly curious about the world. They talked about her films, shared stories, and tried to keep her memory alive. Yet every day without her felt like a reminder of the unanswered questions. Every corner of the city seemed to hold her ghost. Every street, every cafe, every park bench seemed to whisper, "She was here once," and so the years began to pass. People moved on. The city grew. Buildings rose where old streets once lay, and new stars took her place. But for those who truly knew her, the disappearance remained a wound that never healed. Her family never stopped searching, her friends never stopped hoping, and fans never stopped remembering. She had left a mark so deep that even time could not erase it. That night in 1978 was just the beginning of a story that would remain unsolved for more than 2 decades. It was a story of brilliance, sudden loss, and the mysterious silence that followed. People would keep talking about her, wondering what had really happened and hoping that one day, somehow, the truth would emerge. Little did anyone know that the answers were buried somewhere, waiting to be discovered, waiting for a moment when the past would collide with the present in a way nobody could have imagined, a moment that would change everything, turning whispers into facts and rumors into reality. Years passed since that rainy night in 1978, when the young actress vanished without a trace. The city had changed and life had moved forward for everyone, except for those who loved her most. Her family still struggled every day with the emptiness her absence had left behind. Her parents grew older, their faces lined with worry and sleepless nights. Every time the phone rang, they hoped it would be her, that someone had finally found her. But it never was. The disappointment became heavier with each passing day, and yet they could not stop hoping. Her younger sibling, who had been just a child when she disappeared, grew up in the shadow of her absence. Friends at school would ask questions, unaware of how fragile the family was. They tried to explain, but the words never felt enough. The house where she had once laughed and played now echoed with silence. Her room remained untouched for years, filled with clothes she had loved, scripts she had read, and photographs capturing her smile in countless moments. It was like she had paused life there, waiting for someone to come back. Meanwhile, the film industry continued to thrive. New stars emerged, lights shone brighter, and cameras rolled endlessly. Yet for those who had worked with her, there was always a place in their hearts reserved for the actress who had vanished. Directors would mention her name in interviews, reminiscing about her talent, her dedication, and the energy she brought to every set. Actors and crew members shared stories about her kindness, her laughter, and the way she could lift the mood of everyone around her. Even after years, she was remembered as if she had never truly left. The public, too, never stopped talking about her. Magazines would occasionally run articles, asking readers if they had seen her, or revisiting old theories about what might have happened. Fans sent letters to her family, hoping for updates, praying for news, or just expressing their continued love. Some fans would gather at the locations where she was last seen, leaving flowers, candles, and notes. The city itself seemed to hold her memory in its streets, in the parks she loved, in the cafes she had once visited. Over time, rumors and urban legends began to spread. Some claimed to have seen her in distant towns, living under a new identity. Others said she had been taken against her will and was hidden away somewhere. Stories varied from miraculous escapes to dark, unthinkable crimes. Every rumor sparked debates among fans and journalists alike. Some of these tales were heartwarming, giving hope that she was alive. Others were chilling, filling hearts with fear. No one could be sure which, if any, were true. Her family faced challenges beyond just grief. With no closure, they had to navigate the everyday difficulties of life while carrying the constant weight of uncertainty. Financial pressures, social scrutiny, and even occasional harassment from overzealous fans made life harder. Yet through it all, they remained determined to honor her memory and never give up on finding the truth. Every birthday, every holiday, every quiet evening brought back the sharp sting of absence. They would talk about her as if she were still there, sharing memories and imagining what her life might have been like if she had not disappeared. Journalists and investigators continued to look into the case, even decades later. Old files were revisited, witnesses were re-interviewed, and new leads were pursued. Technology was changing, offering new ways to track information and analyze evidence, yet the mystery remained unsolved. Every lead seemed promising at first but ended in dead ends, fueling both hope and frustration. The story became a cautionary tale in the city, a reminder that fame and fortune could not always protect someone from tragedy. Despite the pain, the actress's films continued to live on. People watched them, laughed, cried, and remembered the star they had loved. These films became a bridge between the past and the present, keeping her spirit alive. Each scene, each line of dialogue reminded people of her presence. Young viewers who had never seen her in person learned about her from older generations, passing down stories of her talent and charm. In this way, she became timeless, a part of the cultural memory that refused to fade. Occasionally, small, mysterious events reignited hope. A letter would arrive, unsigned, claiming to know her whereabouts. A stranger would come forward insisting they had seen her in another city, walking alone and looking lost. People who saw these accounts felt their hearts leap, imagining that perhaps the years of waiting might finally end. But as with previous leads, none of them brought her home. Each disappointment weighed heavily. Yet the people who loved her could not stop hoping. During this time, her family also became quiet observers of life, learning to live with uncertainty while never giving up entirely. They would visit places she had loved, cafes, parks, film studios, leaving small offerings, flowers or notes, hoping that somehow she might see them or that someone else might recognize the importance of these gestures. They spoke to the press not to seek attention but to keep her story alive. They wanted people to remember her, not just as a vanished actress, but as a person who had touched lives and brought joy to everyone around her. As the years turned into decades, the city itself changed. Streets were widened, new buildings rose where old ones had fallen, and the people who had known her personally grew older or passed away. Yet in the hearts of those who remained, she was never truly gone. Memories, stories, and legends kept her alive. Her disappearance had become more than a personal tragedy. It was a symbol of mystery, loss, and hope intertwined. Even as the world moved on, the shadow of her absence lingered. Fans would still gather, sometimes in silence, remembering her life and imagining the path she might have taken. Some would write letters to newspapers, others would speak about her in interviews, and many would keep private diaries, hoping to somehow reach the actress who had disappeared so many years ago. Her story was told in whispers, in conversations, and in quiet reflections across the city, ensuring that she would never be forgotten. Yet beneath all the hope, fear quietly lingered. People wondered if she had been lost forever, hidden away by fate or misfortune. The questions that had haunted the city for years, where had she gone? What had happened? Remained unanswered. Each passing year added layers to the mystery, and every unanswered question made the memory of her more poignant. It was a story that could not be forgotten, no matter how much time passed. And so, as the 1980s and 1990s progressed, life continued around her absence. Films were made, stars rose and fell, and the world changed in countless ways. Yet the actress's story remained suspended in time, a mystery, a heartbreak, and a symbol of hope all at once. People who had never met her felt connected to her through stories, through films, and through the shared longing for answers that never seemed to come. The city had moved on, but those who loved her had not. Each day brought the same quiet hope, the same quiet pain. The world may have tried to forget, but in the hearts of family, friends, and fans, she remained as vivid as the day she vanished. The memory of her laughter, her smile, and her brilliance was immortal. Little did anyone know that after more than 2 decades, the past was quietly waiting to reveal its secrets. Hidden beneath layers of time, rubble, and silence, the truth of her disappearance would one day resurface. The years of uncertainty, the decades of speculation, and the countless stories would soon converge in a moment that nobody could have predicted, a moment that would finally bring her story into the light, forever changing the way the city remembered her. By the year 2000, the city had changed in ways that the actress she had once walked among would barely recognize. New buildings towered over old streets, traffic moved faster, and the rhythm of life seemed sharper and more hurried. Yet for some, the memory of her still lingered quietly like a photograph tucked away in a drawer, always there, but out of sight for most. Her disappearance had faded from the headlines, but in the hearts of her family and a few dedicated fans, she was never gone. Every now and then someone would whisper her name, and it would still bring a pang of hope, sorrow, and wonder all at once. One spring, heavy rains swept over the city, Streets flooded, hills became unstable, and construction projects faced delays. At a site on the outskirts of the city, workers were struggling to maintain progress. They were building a new complex on a hillside that had always seemed slightly dangerous. The soil was loose, and locals had long warned against developing there, but the city's growth demanded expansion. That morning, after an unusually intense night of rain, the hillside gave way. A small landslide occurred, sending mud, rocks, and debris tumbling down toward the construction site. Workers rushed to safety, shouting warnings to each other, hearts pounding as the earth seemed to move beneath their feet. When the chaos subsided, they assessed the damage. The landslide had uncovered parts of the hillside that had been buried for decades, exposing objects that had long been hidden. As they sifted through the mud and rocks, one worker noticed something unusual, a small metal container partially embedded in the soil. Curious, he pulled it free, and when the others gathered around, they realized it wasn't just a random piece of trash. It appeared carefully placed, almost hidden, as though someone had wanted it to remain undiscovered. Inside the container there were personal belongings, letters, photographs, and what looked like fragments of a diary. The discovery shocked them. At first, they couldn't imagine what these items meant or who they belonged to, but as they examined the photographs, their hearts raced. There she was, the young actress frozen in images from decades ago. The sight of her smile, the familiar sparkle in her eyes, made everyone pause. For a moment, it felt as if she had been standing there with them, watching silently through time. News of the discovery spread quickly. Reporters arrived at the construction site, cameras flashing, microphones shoved in every direction. The city was stunned. A story that had remained a mystery for more than 20 years had suddenly resurfaced in the most unexpected way. People could hardly believe that after so many years, the past had decided to reveal itself so dramatically. Authorities were called to the site. Forensic experts carefully collected the items, documenting each piece of evidence. They were meticulous, knowing that this could be a breakthrough in one of the city's most famous unsolved cases. Letters were read, photographs analyzed, and fragments of a diary pieced together. Each item told a story, providing a glimpse into the life of a woman who had disappeared so mysteriously all those years ago. The diary entries revealed moments of fear, uncertainty, and private struggles. There were notes about people she trusted, encounters that seemed suspicious, and feelings she had never shared with anyone. The handwriting was small and precise, reflecting her careful, deliberate nature. One passage mentioned her desire to escape the pressures around her, to find a place where she could breathe without expectation or judgment. Another hinted at someone she feared, a shadowy presence that made her feel unsafe. The words were haunting, a window into her thoughts at the time of her disappearance. Photographs showed her smiling with friends, attending events, and even relaxing in moments of quiet reflection. There were also images of places she had visited, streets, parks, and buildings that had long since changed or disappeared. The combination of personal items and images created a vivid tapestry of her life before she vanished. For many, it was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. Her family was notified immediately. They rushed to the site, emotions overwhelming them. Shock, relief, sorrow, and hope collided in a single moment. Seeing her belongings after so many years brought back memories, some joyful, some painful. Her mother clutched a photograph to her chest, tears streaming down her face while her father carefully examined letters, reading words written decades ago. The younger sibling, now grown, felt a mix of nostalgia and grief, realizing that a part of their childhood had returned, even if only through remnants of the past. The media covered every detail, interviewing workers, authorities, and family members. The city was captivated. For decades, the disappearance had been a story told in whispers, in rumors, and in fleeting mentions in old newspapers. Now it was vivid, alive, and impossible to ignore. People felt a connection to her once more, as if they were invited into the mystery, given a chance to finally understand part of the story that had puzzled them for so long. Investigators began piecing together the timeline from the newly discovered items. They compared photographs, handwriting, and other clues with old records. They started to see patterns, hints that had been missed before. It was clear that her disappearance had not been random. Something had intervened, something that forced her life off the path everyone expected. Yet the items also suggested she had tried to document her experience, to leave traces for anyone who might one day search for her. It was a silent message from the past, a plea to be remembered and understood. For the city, this discovery was more than just a story. It was a reminder of how fragile life could be, how quickly someone could vanish from the world, and how persistent memory and hope could be. Fans who had been waiting for news for decades were overwhelmed. They flocked to memorials, left flowers at sites connected to her, and shared stories they had kept hidden for years. For a brief moment, the city seemed united in remembrance, honoring someone who had shaped their cultural memory in ways both large and small. Yet, with the discovery came new questions. Who had hidden these items? Why had they remained buried for so long? Was it an accident, or was someone trying to protect her memory? The investigation deepened, drawing in experts from different fields: forensic scientists, historians, and even psychologists. Each tried to unravel the mystery, knowing that answers could shed light on events that had haunted generations. The emotional impact on her family was profound. They began reliving memories they had tucked away, stories of laughter, dreams, and quiet moments shared together. They spoke to journalists not for fame, but to share the truth, to honor her memory, and to make sure the world understood the person behind the mystery. Every letter read aloud, every photograph examined, brought them closer to her, even if she could never truly come back. For the workers who had discovered the items, life changed too. What had started as a routine day of construction became a moment they would never forget. They had unearthed history, a personal story intertwined with the city's own past. They became minor celebrities, invited to interviews and thanked by fans for their accidental but invaluable contribution to the mystery's unfolding. In the days following the discovery, the city felt a strange mixture of sorrow and celebration. People mourned what had been lost but celebrated the chance to reconnect with a figure who had once inspired so many. Stories of her kindness, talent, and spirit resurfaced, inspiring both young and old. The rediscovery of her belongings reminded everyone that some stories, no matter how long forgotten, have a way of returning when the time is right. And so, after more than 20 years of silence, the past began speaking again. The small metal container, once hidden and forgotten, had carried decades of memory and mystery into the present. It brought shock, grief, hope, and curiosity in equal measure. People could finally glimpse the life of the actress who had vanished and start to understand the complexities of her disappearance. The city, her family, and the fans realized that the story they had carried in their hearts for so long was far from over. The next chapter, the one that would provide answers and revelations, was waiting to unfold. After the discovery of her belongings at the construction site, the city was buzzing with anticipation. Newspapers and television channels covered every detail, trying to piece together what had happened to the actress all those years ago. People who had grown up hearing the story suddenly felt a renewed connection to it. There was a collective sense that finally, after more than 2 decades, answers might begin to emerge. The police and forensic experts quickly took charge of the investigation. They carefully examined each item recovered from the hillside: the diary pages, photographs, letters, and personal objects. Every detail mattered. Fingerprints were compared, handwriting analyzed, and traces of DNA were tested, all in the hope of uncovering what had truly happened. Experts worked tirelessly, often staying late into the night, because they knew the importance of this case not just to the family, but to the city as a whole. As the investigation deepened, the diary became the most revealing piece of evidence. Its pages were delicate, yellowed with age, but the words written on them were clear and full of emotion. Through the diary, the actress's private thoughts came to life. She wrote about her dreams, her fears, and the pressures she faced in the film industry. She also mentioned certain individuals who made her feel uneasy, someone she trusted less than she should have, though she never named them directly. Each entry provided insight into her state of mind, showing a mix of hope, determination, and growing anxiety as she faced circumstances she could not fully control. Investigators also studied the letters and photographs. Some letters seemed to have been written to friends and family, expressing longing and moments of fear. Others appeared to have been attempts to leave clues about her location or situation. The photographs showed places she had been, people she had known, and moments of her life that had been frozen in time. Experts noted that these were not random. It seemed deliberate, as if she wanted someone someday to find these pieces of her life and understand what she had gone through. The forensic team also examined the small container itself. It was cleverly hidden in the hillside, almost as if someone had wanted it to be discovered eventually, but not too soon. The placement suggested care and caution. Investigators speculated that she may have been aware of danger, or that someone else had intentionally left it as a record. Every detail added layers to the mystery, making the search for truth both thrilling and heartbreaking. As authorities pieced together the information, a clearer yet still incomplete picture began to form. It appeared that she had faced a combination of unfortunate events and perhaps deliberate actions that led to her disappearance. There were signs she had been trying to protect herself, and her diary suggested she had been aware of a threat. However, what exactly happened remained uncertain. There were still gaps in the story, missing links that investigators hoped would be answered with further examination and interviews. Meanwhile, the public's reaction was overwhelming. People who had loved her films shared memories of watching her on screen, of laughing and crying with her characters, and of being inspired by her performances. Older fans recalled the excitement of seeing her in person at premieres and public events. Younger fans, who had learned about her through stories and documentaries, felt a deep connection despite never having seen her in real life. The city became united in its fascination and respect for her story, remembering her not only as an actress but as a symbol of resilience and mystery. Her family, while grateful for the renewed attention, faced complex emotions. They were relieved to have new information, yet the pain of remembering her absence was strong. Each discovery reminded them of what they had lost, and every clue brought back memories of the person she had been. The sister, daughter, and friend who had vanished so suddenly. They spoke openly to the press, sharing memories and hopes while expressing gratitude for the support they had received over the years. As the investigation continued, authorities began to interview people connected to her life. Co-stars, directors, friends, and former colleagues were asked to recall anything unusual or suspicious around the time of her disappearance. Small details began to emerge: a strange phone call, an unexpected visitor, a fleeting moment that now seemed significant in hindsight. Every memory was analyzed, every account carefully cross-checked. Investigators knew that even the smallest piece of information could be crucial in reconstructing the final days of her life. Psychologists and behavior specialists were also consulted to better understand her state of mind during the days leading up to her disappearance. By studying her diary and other writings, they concluded that she had been under tremendous pressure. Fame and public expectation had weighed heavily on her, and she had been navigating a complex web of relationships, both professional and personal. This insight helped investigators understand her actions and choices, painting a more complete picture of a young woman trying to survive in a challenging environment. The city watched closely as the investigation slowly progressed. People discussed theories in cafes, online forums, and social gatherings. Some believed she had been forced into hiding. Others suspected foul play, and some hoped she might have chosen a secret life far from the public eye. Every new detail from the recovered items sparked debates, reflections, and renewed fascination with her story. It became clear that this was more than just a criminal case. It was a story about a life interrupted, dreams paused, and a community's enduring desire for closure. As days turned into weeks, a more detailed timeline began to emerge. Investigators correlated the diary entries, photographs, and letters with known events and sightings from the time she disappeared. They reconstructed her movements, the places she had been, and the people she had interacted with. Some events that had seemed minor at the time now took on significant meaning, revealing patterns and hints that had gone unnoticed. Each step brought the investigation closer to understanding what had truly happened to her. At the same time, the emotional weight of the case grew heavier for those involved. Family members revisited old pain, friends remembered the shock and grief of her disappearance, and fans felt a mix of hope and sorrow. The rediscovery of her belongings brought closure to some questions, but also reopened emotional wounds that had been slowly healing over 2 decades. Yet amid the sorrow, there was a shared determination to honor her memory and finally uncover the truth. The city, the family, and the investigators all realized that the story of her disappearance was not just about solving a mystery. It was about remembering her life, respecting her struggles, and acknowledging the impact she had left behind. Every photograph, every diary page, every letter became a symbol of her presence, a reminder that though she had vanished, she had not been forgotten. Experts concluded that while some questions might never be fully answered, The recovered items provided invaluable insight into her final days. They revealed her courage, her intelligence, and the careful steps she had taken to document her life, even under difficult circumstances. It became clear that she had faced challenges with strength, and that the mystery surrounding her disappearance was intertwined with the complexities of human life, ambition, and vulnerability. For the public, this was a story that resonated deeply. It was a story of loss, resilience, and the enduring power of memory. It reminded everyone that even in the face of uncertainty, hope could survive, and that the smallest clues, hidden in diaries, photographs, and letters, could carry enormous meaning across time. People felt a renewed connection to her life, her struggles, and her achievements. As the investigation reached its later stages, a sense of cautious closure began to take hold. While not every detail could be explained, the story that emerged painted a picture of a young woman who had lived fully, loved deeply, and faced challenges bravely. The recovered items allowed her family to remember her as she had been, not just as the person who had disappeared. It was a bittersweet revelation, filled with grief for what had been lost, but also gratitude for the glimpses of her life that had survived the years. The rediscovery of her belongings became a turning point in the city's collective memory. It transformed a decades-old mystery into a story of reflection, understanding, and remembrance. People who had once only known her through films and stories now felt a personal connection, as if the years of waiting had finally been honored with the chance to understand her life and struggles. And so, after more than 20 years of silence and speculation, the truth began to emerge, not in full perhaps, but in fragments that allowed the city, her family, and her fans to finally see her story with clarity, compassion, and respect. The investigation had shed light on her life, her challenges, and her courage, turning a story of loss into a story of remembrance, understanding, and enduring impact. After decades of uncertainty and sorrow, the city, her family, and her fans finally began to find a sense of closure. The discovery of her belongings and the investigation that followed had shed light on her final years, revealing both the challenges she faced and the courage with which she faced them. While not every question could be answered, the fragments of her life that had survived provided a clearer picture of the woman who had captivated so many hearts. Her family, in particular, felt a mixture of relief and grief. Holding her letters, reading her diary, and examining the photographs allowed them to reconnect with her, even if only in memory. For years they had carried the weight of uncertainty, imagining countless possibilities about what had happened. Now they could see her intentions, her struggles, and her love for the people around her. There was comfort in knowing that she had tried to leave pieces of herself behind, a silent message for anyone who might one day search for her. Memorials were held across the city. Friends, fans, and strangers gathered to honor her life, sharing memories and stories that had been passed down over the years. People spoke about her talent, her kindness, and her ability to bring joy and inspiration to those around her. They remembered the way she could make a room feel alive, the way she laughed, and the warmth she offered to anyone who met her. It was a collective remembrance, a celebration of a life that had been extraordinary in so many ways, even though it had been cut short. Her films took on new meaning in this context. Audiences watched them not only as entertainment, but as a testament to her talent and spirit. Scenes that once brought laughter now brought bittersweet tears, as viewers were reminded of the person behind the performance. Critics revisited her work, offering new perspectives and acknowledging the enduring impact she had on the industry. Young filmmakers cited her as an inspiration, noting how her dedication and artistry had influenced the generations that followed. At the same time, the city reflected on the lessons from her disappearance and eventual rediscovery. Discussions arose about the pressures faced by those in the public eye, about the need for support and care, and about the importance of listening to those who may be struggling in silence. Her story became a symbol not just of mystery and tragedy, but also of resilience, awareness, and the lasting influence one life can have on many others. Journalists and historians documented the entire journey, creating books, documentaries, and articles that captured the essence of her life and the story of her disappearance. These works highlighted her achievements, her struggles, and the long search for answers, ensuring that future generations would know who she was and the lessons her life and absence had taught. The story moved beyond simple fascination or rumor. It became a source of reflection and learning, a reminder of both the fragility and the strength of human life. For her family, the emotional journey was ongoing. Even with answers, there were moments of sadness, moments when they wished they could speak to her, hug her, or hear her laughter once more. Yet, there were also moments of gratitude, moments when they felt proud of her courage and resilience. They began to share her story openly, not just as a tale of disappearance, but as a celebration of the person she had been. In doing so, they honored her memory while also finding healing for themselves. Fans continued to visit the places she had loved, leaving flowers, notes, and photographs. They spoke of her as if she were still present, a comforting thought that bridged the gap between past and present. Social media and online communities allowed people from around the world to participate in the remembrance, sharing stories, images, and reflections. Her life, once interrupted by mystery and tragedy, had now become a source of inspiration and connection for countless people. The investigation itself also left a lasting impact. Authorities used the lessons learned to improve processes for missing persons cases, emphasizing the importance of thorough documentation, forensic analysis, and long-term follow-up. Experts shared insights into the psychological, social, and environmental factors that may have contributed to her disappearance, offering guidance for future cases. In this way, her story had a tangible influence on public safety and investigative practices, turning personal tragedy into broader societal awareness. In the years that followed, her name became synonymous not just with mystery but with resilience, memory, and influence. Schools, libraries, and cultural centers held events in her honor, and her films continued to be celebrated in retrospectives and festivals. Scholars analyzed her performances, while everyday people found meaning in the story of her life, her disappearance, and the eventual discovery that brought her back into collective memory. For the city itself, her story became a part of its identity. Streets and neighborhoods remembered the actress who had once walked among them, and the places where she had been seen became small sites of homage. The community learned the value of remembering, of caring for those who are missing, and of honoring lives that have left a mark, no matter how brief. In essence, her legacy was woven into the very fabric of the city, a lasting presence that would never fade. Even for those who had only known her through stories, the discovery of her belongings brought a sense of closure and understanding. The mystery that had haunted the city for more than 20 years now had context, depth, and humanity. People could finally see her not as a mere figure of curiosity, but as a real person with dreams, fears, and courage. They could empathize with her struggles, celebrate her achievements, and mourn her absence in a meaningful way. In the quiet moments that followed the public attention, her family, friends, and fans reflected on what she had taught them. They learned about perseverance in the face of adversity, the importance of memory, and the strength of human connection. They understood that even when life seems uncertain, small gestures, careful records, and love left behind can bridge decades, connecting the past to the present. Ultimately, her story became a reminder that life is precious, fragile, and sometimes unpredictable. It taught that even when someone disappears from view, their impact can remain, shaping the lives of others in ways they may never fully understand. Her legacy was not only in the films she created or the moments she shared, but in the enduring hope, curiosity, and care that she inspired in those who loved her. As the city settled into a sense of closure, the family began to live with a renewed sense of purpose. They spoke openly about her life, celebrated her achievements, and used her story to inspire others. Schools taught children about her resilience. Artists cited her work as an influence, and the community remembered her not just as the actress who disappeared, but as a symbol of courage, memory, and enduring love. The story of her disappearance, discovery, and legacy would be told for generations. It was a tale of mystery, yes, but also a tale of humanity, of connection, and of the ways in which one life, even when interrupted, can touch countless others. People learned to appreciate her fully, not just as a talented actress, but as a human being who faced challenges, left traces of herself for the world, and inspired hope and reflection long after she was gone. And so, after more than 2 decades of uncertainty and waiting, her story found its place in the hearts of all who remembered her. The mystery that had once caused so much pain had transformed into a story of remembrance, honor, and love. Her life, her struggles, and her courage were no longer a secret. They had become a beacon, reminding the city and the world that some stories, no matter how long hidden, have a way of returning to touch us, inspire us, and stay with us forever. Her legacy was complete, not because every question had been answered, but because the story of her life had been told, understood, and honored. She was no longer just the actress who disappeared. She was a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of memory. In this way, she remained alive in the hearts of all who loved her, forever remembered, forever cherished, and forever a part of the city she had once walked through so brilliantly.